Hello, and thank you for joining us for February's Stamp a Stack class. You should have received your kit that will have all the materials to create 8 cards, 2 of 4 different designs, and a written handout that walks you through all the steps to complete these cards. As a supplement, we wanted to provide a video to you that will walk you through each of the steps to complete one of the cards, and you'll follow this process for all 8 cards. So let's begin. Step 1, we're going to create a backwash, which is to apply tea-dye ink with a torn piece of paper that creates intersecting lines. So you're going to take the extra piece of paper that was provided loosely in your kit, and you're going to tear it. You don't want to make big mountains, you just want to create little bits of a ripple across the paper and go the long way so it's long enough to fit across the entire card. Just like that. And what we're going to do is lay this down onto our paper so that we have it at an angle. We are then going to take our tea-dye ink, and you're going to use one of the provided blending foams, and if you rub back and forth, you'll get enough ink on that blending foam to apply it to the cardstock. We're going to hold this ripped piece down on the cardstock and not pressing hard, but we're going to just use kind of a medium press, and we're going to push the ink upward away from that torn edge. And we're going to go all the way across and then all the way back. And when you lift that, you'll see that you have a line. Now what you're going to do is change the angle, and where you do this is totally up to you. Get a little bit more ink and then do your next line. You're going to do this all the way down the card. You can go for wider areas, thinner areas, and if it moves like mine just did, just slide it back into place. If at any time you don't have enough ink, just grab some more. And again, you're going to just continue down the card. And if at any time you feel that the line isn't what you wanted, place your paper back and just continue inking. Let's continue this one. We're going to go all the way down, hold that paper in place. If you feel more comfortable, you can attach a piece of masking tape to it, or painter's tape, or mint tape, something that you have to hold it down. And we'll just continue on down across the paper. You're going to do this until you get to the end of the paper. And then finish up down at the bottom. Just like that. So that creates that textured background. Step 2, we are going to take one of our stencils, and there are a variety of stencils that will be on the table for you, including the one in the samples. But for this one, I'm going to pull out a different stencil, and we're going to swap our ink. And we're going to choose the antique linen ink. And you're going to pick up an antique linen brush. We're going to add ink to our brush. We are then going to place the stencil in two opposite corners. And it can be angled, it can be straight. You don't want the edge over here because we don't want to get a straight line. So go off. And you want to randomly stencil or push ink through the stencil to get a look that is a bit abstract. So let me show you what I mean. If I start at the top and I go in circular motions and I'm not pressing too heavy and I'm not getting all of it, I'm just doing random parts. When I lift that, that gives me my ink through the stencil. Now I'm going to go to the opposite corner. I'm going to pick up just a little bit more ink. And I'm going to once again stencil in a circular motion randomly. And I'm not going to go too heavy. And if you want to go off the paper a little bit in some places, that looks nice. And then lift your stencil. That's your second layer. For step 3, we're now going to take another stencil, and I'm going to use what I used in the samples that you saw, and now I'm going to go in the two opposite corners. I'm going to lay down my stencil again, making sure the edge isn't on the paper, and now I'm going to take dried marigold distress ink, and I'm going to get some ink on the blending foam, and I'm going to ink with a medium pressure, not too heavy, down through the stencil. And if it's easier for you, you can go circular or you can push twist, whichever is easier for you. And you want to go random. We don't want to get everything, and you'll notice I'm not using tape because it's easier just to hold it in place and ink through it until I get the desired effect that I want. Lift your stencil, and now you're going to go down to the opposite corner. You're going to randomly ink through the stencil, not picking up everything. That's one of the things about this type of look, is it's a bit abstract. And you're going to lift that, and now you have the ink down there. Now, step 4, we are going to stamp the flower stamps, but at this point, I recommend to you that you do all of your cards up to this point, and that gives them a chance to dry. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take one of the misties that have been provided for you, and we're going to put our paper into the misty, into the bottom corner, just like so. So it's down in that corner. And then if you need to, make sure the stamp is cleaned off, but you're going to place that stamp into the center of your cardstock. Now you'll notice that 2 of your designs have this flower. The difference is for 2 of them, they're tilted this way. For 2 of them, they're tilted this way. It gives it a totally different look. We're going to tilt it this way for this card. We're going to pick it up, and we're going to apply archival ink onto the stamp. And you'll notice in your directions it says that you may need to stamp this twice, and that's just to get a darker look. But if you do a second stamp, make sure that your card is back in that corner so that you don't have a stamp in two different places. We will push that down and we'll press on the stamp. To get our look. Now you'll notice I want to stamp, ink it one more time, just to make it darker. And we're then going to make sure that's in the corner and then push our stamp down again. If you have a stamp press tool, you can use that at this time. It would be easier for you. There we go. You're going to take that out and set your MISTI aside. You can do all 8 cards. You can do a few at a time. That is your choice. Now we're going to do step 5, which is word stamping for the first layer of the word stamp. There are these 2 different word stamps, and you can use one or both. I'm going to take the scripted word stamp, which is this one, and I am going to grab the vintage photo ink, and while holding this in my hand, I'm going to flip it upside down, and just 1/2 of the stamp I'm going to push into that stamp pad. I'm then going to stamp off on a scrap piece of paper that is underneath your project, just a little bit to lift some of that ink, and I'm now going to put that stamp on various places on my card. You want to make sure that you don't go too far into the flower. When I need to pick up more ink, I stamp off once and I come back down and do it a few more times. Now what I'm going to do is flip my stamp over to the other side because we want the other edge, and I'm going to place that onto this side of the card. And I'm going to stamp a few times so you get that faded kind of 3rd generation look. Just like that. We're then going to take Fired Brick Distress ink, and we're going to do the same thing but with the other stamp, unless you want to use the same one again. So we're going to press into the ink, and on a scrap piece or your workspace under you, just lightly tap off, and we're going to stamp randomly with that ink. Then we're going to flip our cardstock to the other side and flip our stamp to use the other half. And we're going to randomly stamp with the other half of the stamp. If you'd like to get some towards the middle of the card, you'll do the same thing, but you want to be careful that you don't go into your flower, because remember, distress inks are water reactive, and that color will react with the water. That takes us down through step 6. Now we're going to go to the leaf stamping, which is step 7. We're going to take the crushed olive ink pad, and we're going to take the leaf stamp that is part of the set. And again, in our hands, we don't want to pick up everything. I just want to go for this area. I'm going to press that, not hard, into that ink pad. And if you want to see how much you're getting, just stamp off, and that's quite dark. So now I'm going to come in and add that into that corner. I'll stamp off, and maybe this time I'll go with it straight up. If I flip this, now I can bring that stamp pad straight down or to an angle, staying away from my flower, and then do my other corner. And that gives us our green. Now if you were using on several of the cards this berry sprig, you do the same thing, just don't go heavy with it, go around the edges, which you'll see in a couple of the sample cards. We're now going to take the tea dye ink and we're going to ink the background, but not heavy. So I'm going to put some ink onto my blending tool, and in circular motions from one side to the other, I'm going to start off the paper and pretty lightly just go across without going into my flower, and add a little bit of that tea dye ink. You can go over the leaves. They're okay to go over. We're going to continue around the card. We're not going heavy. And if you go light, you shouldn't get any blending foam marks on your paper. You're just adding a little bit of that color to kind of distress up the background. There we go. It's that easy, and you can do all of them and give them a chance to dry. Now what we're going to do with either a distressing tool or a sharp pair of scissors, we're going to distress the edges. All you have to do is hold your paper stable, and this is 110-pound paper, so it's pretty sturdy. You want it to be dry at this point. And we're going to rub along the edges to give a distressed look. If you get a little tear in the paper, that's okay because it adds to the look. We're going to go all the way around, and as you're going, just hold your paper so it's stable and run those scissors or that distressing tool down the edge. We're going to continue around the card. We have a little rip, and that's okay. It adds to the distress. And you can distress this as much as you want to. If you do it a lot, you may have to cut the black background piece a little bit smaller to accommodate. You're just going to go around all the edges. I got another rip, but I'm okay with that because it's distressed. Just watch your hands with the scissors because they're sharp. There we go. And then just clean off your surface. You're going to do that to all of your images or all of your card fronts. Now what we're going to do is take the vintage photo distress ink with the vintage photo blending brush. And it's easier if you do this down on the table to begin with. From a circular, I kind of tilt my brush just a little bit And I'm going to hit the edge of that paper, but come in just a little bit on that edge. And you can see that the edge is starting to turn a nice darker brown. And it really just frames that cardstock. Pick up more ink as you need. Continue going around all your outer edges. Try not to go too far in. You're just wanting to get that edge to make it look like it's framed in. You could use a blender brush for this. I find the blending foams, these work a whole lot better when applying the ink. And they're a little bit easier to control. And that gives us our edge. Now we'll move on to step 11, which is coloring your flower. You have the option to take dried marigold, worn lipstick, fossilized amber, wild honey. You could also use the fired brick, although be careful because that is a darker ink. And for the sake of this one, I'm going to go with the worn lipstick. And on your work surface, you're going to lay down a little bit of ink by pressing it into your the craft pad right below you and twisting just to get a little bit of ink. You're then going to take the spritzer bottle and you're going to add just a couple little spritzes of water. We will now take a paintbrush, and there will be several left for you, so you get to decide what size you want to use. And this is not a real detailed look, it's just like a wash. But you're going to wet your brush and then just take off any of that excess water. We are then going to pick up some of this ink and we're going to very carefully but quickly add that color across that flower. Just watch when you get to your edges. And because this is Neenah cardstock, we don't want to put too much water, so that's why you go somewhat quick with this, and it's just a wash. I'm just getting the ink to lay down. And as you need more ink, put it down on the craft mat and spritz it a little more, but not with too much water. Okay. We're then going to take one of the smaller brushes and after we pick up that first ink, and do several if you want to, we're then going to take the crushed olive and in the same manner lay down a little bit of that ink. Pick up our spritz and add a little water. We're then going to pick up that ink and then in the same kind of manner we're just going to add green. And if you go outside the lines a little, it's okay. This is more of an abstract look. And I would recommend, if you can, to try to sit and do all of your flowers, the coloring at the same time, which will give them all a chance to dry. So when you go to assemble it, you don't have to worry about anything smudging. And just paint the leaves as you see fit. Just like that. You're then going to pick up, when you're all done, that ink, and we're then going to assemble the card once your panel is dry. You can use a double-sided adhesive, or you can use a wet glue. I have Barely Arts glue, so I'll go ahead and use that. I'm going to flip my card base or card front over, and you don't want a lot, but try to get up to the edges, and then apply some through the middle. And you're going to apply this card front, or adhere it, to your black cardstock. And then I like to flip it over to rub it. You have been provided a package that has 8 pieces of this green twine. They're all about 35 inches long. You're going to hold it on one side like this with a little bit sticking up. You're going to wrap it 1, 2, and come around the 3rd time, and you're going to want to knot that. And for those that don't know, if you want to get it tight, but don't bend the paper. If you take a pair of tweezers and put them across that twine, it will hold it long enough for you to be able to tie your first tie. You'll then just squeeze your tweezers out and tighten it, and then you can tie that again. You will then trim up your edges of your twine, depending on how long you want it. And we are then going to take one of the 8 sentiments that were provided to you in your kit. I put foam adhesive on the back, and I'm just going to place that on the card where I want it to go. And I forgot a step, so sorry. Before you lay that down, we want to add a little bit of ink to that, and depending on the color you want to use, I have a little bit of tea dye left on my brush. I'm just going to go over that tag with a little bit of color just to dull it down, and now I'll add that to my card. You can then apply either foam adhesive on the back for the sake of the video. I'm just going to lay down some of the Barely Art glue. And you're going to adhere this to your craft cardstock. Or you can do, like I said, and add the foam adhesive if you want to do that. And there's our first card. You will do all 8 cards the same way. If at any time you have questions or need assistance, please go to the staff that is in the store and they'll be happy to help you. Thank you for attending Stamp-A-Stack. I hope you enjoyed creating these cards, and I hope to see you at one of our future classes. Take care. Bye-bye.